The idea was for you guys to come together and ask me some questions of what you were interested in, with the shamanism, anything that might have come up in your last few ceremonies, that you might want to investigate verbally. How are you doing, Erica?
Good.
You're looking good. Your ceremony last night was useful for you?
Yeah, I am not getting any sense of sort of continuity or any kind of opening up. It's all images, and some of them are nice, some of them are not so nice. There's no kind of narrative, and I think that's dose related.
No, it's not. It's content related, because what's happening is that the ayahuasca is so broad, so wide, and it's working on a part of your consciousness that you have no access to. You're working on the subconscious and on the astral plane. Okay, now the conscious mind is trying to figure that out and say, where are we going? Where did we start? Where are we going? What are our goals? And so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that the whole issue is so deep and it's so profound that you're not going to be able to understand it until much later. Because you're sifting through material. When you go through a subconscious process, you inevitably filter an enormous amount of material through your mind. And the subconscious mind has no rush. It will take 3 days to sift through material that's completely unrelated to the issue. But it will come out with the solution at the other side, and then you say that this material was related after all. I just didn't recognize it like that. So that's why I tell you always to try to take a step back, detach yourself, and try to just experience the medicine. Let it work through your nervous system, through your mind, and through everything that comes through your head. Take it all with a grain of salt, because there's no way you're going to be able to control something this powerful and this effective. You develop your problems subconsciously. You develop your solutions subconsciously. But it's easier to develop problems than to develop solutions, because when you develop solutions, you have to release control. You have to let things work in their own way. And you also have to act in an appropriate style. In other words, there's many people that will say, I'm holy, I'm strong, I'm a healer, I'm this, I'm that, and the other thing. But what do? They finish it, then they go out and they go eat in a 5-star restaurant, they go live a lifestyle that has absolutely nothing to do with what they just talked about. Now, we see that on a regular basis. Every day, every night, the same thing. People that are esotericizing themselves to become important. But the problem is that their lifestyle does not reflect their speech. Okay, now if somebody wants to be a shamanic healer, or they want to be an authority in shamanic healing, they've got to be a shamanic healer. They've got to live in the jungle with the plants and with the animals, and they have to do shamanic healing. They can't just be sitting back in an armchair and musing about it. Like the old anthropologists from Oxford when they first began, So we'll sit back and decide that we're the top race, and, we're God's gift to the world, and we understand it. But what do? They sit back and contemplate. They never get down. They never learn anything. They never do anything. They never have any sort of an impact on the ground. That's why I didn't join the Christian church. I was baptized as a Christian, but I didn't join the church. Why? Well, because all the people were talking something that they didn't live. They said they were in love and that they were helping everybody, but I didn't see any fruits of their labors. Because all they were worried about is paying the bills and making more money and becoming important in everybody else's eyes. Well, it doesn't sound like what Christ was talking about, so I don't think I want to have any part of this nonsense. Sounds like a piece of shit to me. So what do? I go into shamanism. I study comparative religions. I study the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Confucians, the Unitarians. I said, well, they're all basically in the same boat. Some of them are real, some of them are not. But the proof is always in the fruit of the labors. What do people produce? What do people actually come up with? Do they heal people? Do they help people? Or do they just use people for their ends and then die miserable and with no hope for them or their children? That's the question. Are their lives authentic? or are their lives a big, weak, non-courageous, and humble, stupid spook on what they would like to be, but they can't do it? And so what do? They imitate other people. They try to be like other people, but they can't pull it off because they haven't got the balls, they haven't got the intelligence, and they haven't got the right permission to do it, because they need permission. Now, if somebody gets permission from inside, it's not a problem. They'll do it. Because they don't look for permission. They already know. They have a source outside that tells them, yes, you're capable of doing this. Go ahead and do it. Why? Well, because you don't depend on the people. You depend on the divine source of your energy. And that's what you have to depend on if you're going to do anything viable in the healing field. And when you do that, you don't have to justify yourself. You don't have to market yourself. Because it'll be a natural recognition. And people know that you are doing what you're supposed to do, and you get results. And that is the only promotion you need. You don't have to pick up your voice, and you don't have to get a badge. You don't have to get a title. You don't have to get anything. Because all you have to do is you have to be able to bring results. You have to be able to heal, to teach, to inspire, and to save. And that's what we're doing here. And that's why you're all here. It's because you have faith that that can be done. And then that's possible. It's not some sort of fairy tale. It's a reality. And it can be done. And it can be done effectively and well. And it can be done with your help and with your coordination. That's all we ask. You know? But it's a sacrifice to do that. But it's a much larger sacrifice to not do it. Because if you don't do it, you're basically missing your own boat. And it just left you, and you're abandoned. Because your boat's gone, and you have no valve of moving forward. Now, it's very important, if you're going to be a shamanic healer, that you go through teaching with people who know what they're doing. Now, I went through that, and I worked and I worked and I worked. I went through one phase where we're talking about what I mentioned to you, the 159th journey. Well, the 159th journey I took with ayahuasca, I thought that I had pretty much arrived, that I was doing real well. So I went through a ayahuasca ceremony. I came out on the other side. I was feeling very balanced, cool. And my teacher, because he was a very astute little manipulator, he said, does anybody here want to take another dose for the road? Anybody, any real men around here, you know? I said, yeah, I'd take one. I said, okay, here you go. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm out of here. So what happens? I'm sitting there with the second cup of ayahuasca. I'm going back to my room to get some rest. But I wake up in the middle of the night, and I don't know where I am. And I'm looking around, and I'm saying, where am I? You know, where am I? Oh, yeah, right. There's a friend staying inside next door. So I said, I better go out and check with him. But there's something strange here. I don't hear anything. I can't hear anything. You know, why is my hearing off? I said, what's wrong with me? I don't know. Well, go outside. No, I don't dare. I'm all No, I'll go out anyhow. So I go next door and knock on the door. I check on all the doors, and there's nobody there. I said, well, what happened? I must have gotten lost for a couple weeks, and they just left me here. And then I saw a light at the end of the corridor, and I said, oh, maybe there's somebody down there. I go all the way down there. I go inside, and you know how when people die in Peru, they put them on a table, they put a sheet over them, and they put a candle on each end. Well, there was a body laying there, but nobody else. And so I pulled the sheet off, and it was me. I'm laying there on the table, dead. I said, well, I really screwed up this time. Mom told me not to do this, and here I am, making the same mistakes. So, pretend this didn't happen, go back. So, the next morning, I get woken up by, Scott, get up, it's time for breakfast. And I go out and I say, well, those guys don't know I'm dead yet, so I might as well just pretend I'm not dead. So I go out and pretend. But pretending was very difficult because I was walking a very fine line between psychosis and sanity. And every time I looked sideways at something that would distract me, I'd go in that direction, and don't look at that. And I did that for 3 days, just balancing, until it was time for another ayahuasca ceremony, and my teacher took me in, and no sentimentality, no nothing. He says, here's your cup, Scott, take it. I said, well, this is my last goodbye to planet Earth. I know I'm out of here now. But I go up, and I come down, and when I come down, I'm whole again. I have the conduit for going into trance and coming smoothly out again, but I always come right back down to my normal body and mind. So basically, the whole process came full circle. The next morning, he says, Scott, you're out of here. You just graduated. You got to go work with the Shipibo Indians for a few years to refine your stuff. Now you're a warrior. You're not scared, and you're all right. Now you can heal people, but you haven't got the technique. You have to learn much more delicate things. So what that is that's basically an example of somebody burning a conduit into their brain, into the neurological system, so that they can access different dimensions. Now that's a very important part of going into effective shamanic healing, because you are not going to be able to do it in your conscious mind. It will not work. You have got to be able to fluidly go from the celestial realm into the underworld and come right back and relate to what's happening here, so that you can bring energy back, you can bring solution back, and you can make people that are sick well again, and make them well in a very short time. You know, without putting them on a 10-year program. You put them on maybe a 20-day program, and you get the job done. And so that's what it is. You go through that, and it doesn't stop. It continues escalating as you go forward. You get better and better and better if you're gifted for it, and if you're called for it, and if you're willing to go the distance. If you're not willing to go the distance, you'll stop at one point and say, well, I want to start a cult over here, or I want to, build a big center over here, something like that. But if you're on a spiritual path, you don't worry about that, because you know that will all be taken care of. You just go forward to your vision and to your calling, and you forget about being alive, because you already died, and you're a goner, and you're just playing on borrowed time. And so whatever you do is a gift to yourself and to the people around you, so you have to respect it. And then you lose all precaution, and you start enjoying yourself. You're no longer frightened of death, you're no longer frightened of life. You start doing everything exactly the way you want to do it, because you're not frightened anymore, because you know you're going to die anyhow. So what's the problem if you died today, or if you died 10 years from now? At least you lived while you were here. And so one of the things about not being afraid of life is not being afraid of death. And so that's why shamans, if they're effective healers, and if they are capable of using their intellect and their talents and their calling to helping other people, it's because they're not afraid of dying. Because at the bottom of all the fears that we have, it's being dead. That's the least of my worries. My worry is being alive. It's much harder to be alive. So, if you're not afraid of being dead, being alive can be a lot of fun. And it can give you a lot of energy, and it can emanate a lot of energy to people who are looking for guidance and help. And it can open you up to the immense blessing that we have to be on a planet like this, and to have a body to where we can experience it on all levels and in every way. And so you guys are here in the womb. You guys are here in Amazon, where the mother of all medicines is in charge. You have ayahuasca in your bodies already. You're moving down that path with your own personal goals. You're healing, you're learning, and you're moving forward. And you're doing it at your own pace. And you know that you're in good hands, so everything's going to work out all right. But you also know that it's going to get dialed up a little bit higher than you might have expected it the first time you showed up. But that's good, because that means that you're going to stop wasting time, because you're sick of mediocrity, right? You're sick of things that don't work, that pretend to work but they don't. You want things to actually come full circle and walk their talk. Well, that's what we demand, and that's what the spirit world always demands. If it's going to give you any power, if it's going to give you any energy, any illumination, and any help, it's because you're not frightened to say what you think and to live the lifestyle that really emanates from what you believe. And so I wish that for all of you. Thank you so much for being here with me, because I really feel privileged to have all of you.